Also, thank you, my friends, for finally remembering my phone number. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Was the exclusion of John Paul Jones an obvious sort of...
Shut up. No. An obvious. Oh, it don't matter. It's just that Jonesy was busy and we're busy.
Past more rehearsal time at CTS Studios Wembley in July, Page and Plant travelled to Marrakesh, Morocco on August 9th and 10th for filming of the upcoming MTV special. Sound engineering for all locations was handled by Michael Gregovich, who worked on Robert's Now and Zen and Fate of Nations. One of the Marrakesh locations was Yama Al Fina, one of the main cultural spaces in Marrakesh and one of the symbols of the city since the 11th century. A place where musical, religious and artistic expressions are performed, it's a historic site for cultural traditions in Morocco. Page and Plant performed the track The Truth Explodes, with Jimmy wearing a similar outfit to Led Zeppelin's June 1973 show at Kezar Stadium. Led by a percussion drum loop by the name of Yala, the song revolves around a hypnotic riff by Page with Plant's poetry, inspired by their surroundings. Ambient sound was captured and the performance had everyone on site following the beat. Quite a daring moment with no backing band behind, like the 1970 sessions Gone Electric, masters at their craft. Songs Wawa and City Don't Cry were recorded on location in Marrakesh with an all-star cast of local Nawa musicians who played an amalgamation of indigenous African rhythms, chants, and drone-type melodies. Both tracks were played by Jimmy on an open guitar tuning of A-E-A, E-E-A, and E-A-E, A-C, E-flat. I tried to find the name of this location but couldn't find useful data. It looks like an abandoned courtyard. If anyone can identify the location on the photograph, please share it on the comment section below. I'm curious to know. Robert Plant seemed to find peace in the middle of his music quest. He came full circle to the dream he had in 1975. It was recorded on tape for years to come. August 14th. Day 2 at Woodstock 1994. The 25th anniversary of the historic festival featured a wide variety of rock performers, including some of the 1969 acts like Country Joe and Santana. Among the artists that day was none other than Paul Rodgers alongside former Free bandmate Andy Fraser, Journey's Neil Sean, Jason Bonham, and special guest Slash. Paul's 13-track setlist included both hits by Bad Company and Free, as well as a selection of blues covers. It didn't play any songs by their firm. Aubrey King's The Hunter was featured on the Woodstock 1994 live album. Page and Plant moved their unleaded schedule to the Nandor Gog Stream in mid-Wales on August 16th as background for their new arrangement of Led Zeppelin's No Quarter. Using the same guitar tuning for Kashmir, Jimmy transformed Jones's original keyboard parts into a sinister ritual alongside Plant's eerie vocals. With clever use of delay effects for Robert, the rhythm movement of this track creates a haunting performance. Next stop was a slate quarry located at Corris Yukov in the northwest part of Wales on August 17th to record both Nobody's Fault But Mine and When the Levee Breaks, two tracks with similar arrangements which makes it hard to tell apart from each other. It seems the CD album cover was shot here, judging by Page and Plant's outfits. It was probably very cold because they didn't look happy on the cover. The band featured a regular 4-piece lineup plus special guest musicians. British Nigel Eaton played hurdy-gurdy, a second time collaborating with Plant as he played the same instrument on Fate of Nations. Jim Sutherland on mandolin was a folk musician star himself, with many collaborations under his belt. Paul Thompson was brought in for the guitar and banjo duties. His name was familiar in the rock and roll world as guitarist for The Cure, a band he left in 1994 after being with them since 1983. His work can be heard in songs like The Cure's Lullaby from 1989. This track became important later on in the Page and Plant story. The performances from these mid-Wales sessions were an honest return to the acoustic blues format of the genre's forefathers, with the added touch of a heavy rhythm section. Because of the musical similarity of both songs played by Jimmy on his 12-string, it is safe to think they recorded this on one take as a sort of medley with the drone sound as transition vehicle. The third and final location for the recording of Unledded took place across the river from Led Zeppelin's original 1968 rehearsal room on Gerrard Street. London Weekend Television Studios, nowadays the London Studios, was the chosen venue for the proceedings. The crew had one day to set up on August 24th, to then shoot 2 nights on August 25th and 26th. This is where both the London Metropolitan Orchestra and the Egyptian Ensemble met for their signature sound to elevate their material. Leading the Egyptian Orchestra as musical director was Hossam Ramzi. He's sort of the John Bonham of percussion in the Arabic music world, with a discography of 32 records. Unledded was his second album. What was his first, you ask? Well, it was the 1989 Passion soundtrack composed by Peter Gabriel. The project had Gabriel bringing together musicians from the Middle East, Africa, Europe, and South Asia. Hossam Ramzi featured a selection of percussion instruments: tambourines, surdo, mazahar, tabla, daf, finger cymbals, and triangle. He played on tracks 1, 8, 9, 11, and 13 next to names like Manu Katché, Billy Cobham, Nathan East, and Peter Gabriel's guitarist, David Rhodes. So how did Hossam Ramzi end up working with Gabriel? Well, his story is quite fascinating, really. It began in Cairo and his love for Egyptian tabla, and later Bedouin tribes in Saudi Arabia, where he immersed himself in deep studies of polyrhythms. He moved to England in 1975 to pursue a career as a jazz drummer, loving the sounds of Charlie Parker, Miles Davis, and Chick Corea. In between jobs as cleaning and dishwashing, he practiced up to 6 hours a day. Ramzi became a jazz drummer with local gigs with his own band. His life changed the day he went to an Arabian nightclub in London. A performance that night of Middle Eastern drum sections motivated him to record what's considered a seminal release for the genre, Introduction to Egyptian Dance Rhythms. Hossam's album ended up in the hands of one of Peter Gabriel's drummers, and the rest is history, so we gotta thank Peter Gabriel for Unledded. Fun fact, Robert's daughter Carmen is a professional belly dancer who studied under Serena Ramsey, Hossam's wife. Now here's a rundown of the 11 songs performed in London. Track 1, Thank You, featured the aid of Ed Shermer on Hammond organ. He was also in charge of orchestral arrangements for both English and Egyptian teams. Yeah, it seems they had to get 2 guys to do John Paul Jones's job on keyboards and bass. I can't help to think the 1993 Coverdale Page interview when I see Robert's red clothing at the show. Page going for a blue shirt is somewhat reminiscent of Knepworth's 1979. Jimmy's fluid lead guitar work through his cherry red Gibson with a B-bender was a nice introduction to the evening. Michael Lee on drums recreated some of the John Bonham BBC Sessions power, and Charlie Jones held the glue together with style. Robert's interpretation here was delicate without going overboard. Same comment goes for track 2, What Is and What Should Never Be, with Jimmy switching over to his number 1 Les Paul. Both songs are very hard to mess up, really. This was a good warm-up. Track 3, The Battle of Evermore, was the much-needed redemption for previous Led Zeppelin live attempts at this song in 1977, with John Paul Jones on vocals and his triple neck guitar. 1994 had Jimmy on triple neck playing mandolin, and British-born singer, songwriter, and composer Najma Akhtar, who was dating Robert Plant at the time. Her vocals added the much-needed female energy that made the 1971 original studio recording so effective. The band was completed with Paul Thompson on acoustic guitar, Jim Sutherland on bodhrán, and Nigel Eaton on hurdy-gurdy. Track 4, Gallows Pole, a song Page and Plant had not performed in full since November 16, 1971, in England. Jimmy used his double neck Ovation guitars. He was quite fond of this brand of guitars, featuring them on Roy Harper's album from 1984 and the Coverdale Page album. I personally hate the sound of these guitars. They sound a bit harsh. Charlie Jones switched to acoustic bass and Jim Sutherland took the mandolin for this one. Paul Thompson showed off his banjo chops and Nigel Eaton added his gurdy-gurdy flair. An exciting take on a Led Zeppelin 3 classic. The song works with the aid of Michael Lee's heavy pounding drums. With a simple structure and a solid beat, it keeps the warm-up vibes going. Once again, this is a song that's very hard to mess up. If you mess up during this song, you should go do something else. Track 5, Wonderful One, was played by Jimmy on both his 6-string neck with an alternate tuning in F sharp and the 12-string on standard tuning with a capo on the 1st fret. A drum loop was used as rhythm section. Its musical style has some minor echoes to the Rain song, with Robert Plant going for tender phrasing on his vocals. While the track is quite repetitive, it's a nice transition into the other parts of the set, a solid collaboration tune that the rock and roll world needed. Okay, now on to track 6. The beautiful and elegant Since I've Been Loving You. Jimmy nailed the lead guitar parts, moving carefully between 1973 and 1977. His Vox AC30 and Fender amp combination provided just the right amount of crunch to shred. His tone was well defined. Michael Lee's drumming is fantastic. He doesn't rush nor gets in the way of the song. Robert's ad-libs were kept to a minimum to great effect. His scream in the middle was a quick return to 1977 without losing the grip. The added orchestra in the back is a splendid texture that adds a dramatic feel to the music, but I have to say, I think John Paul Jones would have written a better arrangement. It's a dangerous song to record and they pull it off with passion. The secret was to control the impulse to add wild embellishments. One of the concert's highlights and my second favorite, the Rain Song, was a historic feat for both Page and Plant, with its first live performance using the acoustic guitar as leading instrument, more specifically Jimmy's 1960s Martin D28, the same guitar he used on Led Zeppelin's 1970 and 1977 tours. The instrumental blend of keyboards, acoustic bass, drums, and orchestra managed to replicate the studio version of Houses of the Holy to the point of perfection. A sublime rendition where everybody played at the top of their game. Robert Plant's performance was particularly surprising. No traces of past Led Zeppelin hate nor beef. He sings with passion like it was 1973. Fun fact about this song, I got an email from a fellow subscriber who attended both Unledded shows. He shared with me that Jimmy Page made a mistake during the acoustic closing section on the first night, which may explain Plant smiling at Jimmy on the final take we see from the second show. As a guitarist, I can assure you playing that final bit can be a nightmare. It's trickier than people think. I can't imagine having the pressure of an MTV Unplugged show. Track 8 presents a gentle and laid-down run-through of That's the Way with almost the same instruments from Galas, which makes me think this was played right after that one. Michael's drumming was a new addition to Led Zeppelin's previous live versions. It's quite a surprising punch that takes the song to new unplugged terrains and modern grunge destinations. Page and Plant's return to the Led Zeppelin 3 essence was a much-needed vibration for fans after years of beefs and electric battles. Props to Charlie Jones for his clean playing complementing the fine rhythm accents of the band. Track 9, 4 Sticks, takes us back to India 1972, this time with Hossam Ramsey guiding the Egyptian ensemble through the busy time signatures of this Led Zeppelin 4 classic. The added layers of percussion alongside Michael's drums create a sonic powerhouse enhanced by violins like string section riddles. A very effective tune that celebrated world music as instrument telepathy. Track 10, Friends, takes you back to Page and Plant's Eastern travels with a slow galloping thumb and Michael Lee playing drums with his hands a la John Bonham. And now mine and I'm sure everybody's favorite song from Unledded. Next to the 2007 version, 1994 Kashmir is a milestone in Unplugged history and quite possibly the finest musical piece from this collaboration. What makes this stand out from the rest of the album is the element of surprise with the Egyptian ensemble arrangements coming out of nowhere, as well as the extremely tight connection between all instruments. The problem with most of the electric songs presented here is that they couldn't be altered that much. Kashmir was a game changer and to some degree, it overshadows the rest. As a musician, you can tell this was the track they rehearsed the most and dedicated a big chunk of time coming up with the arrangement. It's the piece of resistance, a tour de force that shook the world of classic rock reunions. Robert's singing on the intro was so refreshing. Adding the Middle Eastern phrasing which he developed on the Fate of Nations tour of 1993 was a stroke of genius. The way the band plus the orchestras come together leaves you speechless. They may say it's unleaded, but for me it's leaded. The closing section with the violin bow solo plus Hossam Ramsey's musical direction is a dream come true in world music. Page, Jones, and Lee reply with a fast guitar riff attack that leads to parts of Black Dog, sung by Robert Plant, to close the event in the highest note possible. His words, "Thanks a lot, see you later," were prophetic indeed.
One of the guys found one new burger that eats like two. Introducing the tasty new Mega Double Cheese from Burger King. One sandwich with 2 burgers for 1/3 pound of flame-broiled taste. It's 50% bigger than our double cheeseburger used to be. And at the everyday price of just $1.99, since the burger got bigger, the value did too. The new Mega Double Cheese, just $1.99 every day at Burger King. We may not be the world's #1 fast food place. It just tastes that way.
After years of being told you can't afford a luxury coupe until you're rich and gray, we'd like to offer this compelling rebuttal. Introducing the all-new Nissan 240 SX, the affordable luxury coupe.
September 6, 1994. If Page and Plant were unleaded, this collaboration was unbelievable. One of the strangest musical news for the Led Zeppelin world was released in the Ways of the Sporting Life, an album by singer Diamanda Galás and John Paul Jones. Diamanda did not lose his number and called him up for a bizarre and experimental record released by Mute, the same record label Depeche Mode was signed to. The heavy parts of Unleaded sounds like music for babies next to this. Although this album was released 1 month before Page and Plant's MTV broadcast, I like to think of The Sporting Life as Jones's middle finger to his former Zeppelin bandmates. Jones didn't go to the press to fight back Robert's comments. He didn't need to. He's a class act. This album is a great comeback that speaks for itself. The musical elements of this album range from experimental rock to exquisite R&B. Diamanda's vocals are up there with free jazz saxophones, aggressive punk rock, and deep-water conceptual progressive rock. John Paul Jones's bass work lives in the same universe of King Crimson and Primus. His attack is relentless and precise, percussive wisdom, and master of dynamics. So who the hell is Diamanda Galás, you ask? Well, she's an American musician, visual artist, and soprano. Raised by a Greek-American mother and an Egyptian-American father, her talent is a unique mixture of skill, courage, and passion. If you thought Unleaded was out there, Diamanda's first album was called The Litanies of Satan, and she used to do very interesting covers at her shows, like the legendary avant-garde works of Yannis Xenakis and John Zorn. She's no ordinary musician. Her commitment to social issues is absolute. Diamanda has been a strong activist for AIDS education and political injustice. She is her works. She is her art. She's not pretending to care about a better world. She works for it. Her discography is quite a provocation and exploration into the unknown. Crazy John Paul Jones surprised the Zeppelin fans once again. Jones was a fan of Diamanda's work and agreed to write material for her, thus The Sporting Life came to be.
It was an interesting record. It was a dark record in a lot of ways, although it was quite humorous. It was actually recorded out in the countryside in this beautifully day-lit studio, and we could see deer bounding across the fields, and she's thinking, okay, let's kill him! So, it's actually a nice illustration if you don't have to be where it sounds. You don't have to be in a horrible place to make hard-sounding music, So it's all up here.
You have to feel it. It has to come from within.
Yes, but I knew her work. I had one record by her at that time. I had Wild Women with Steak Knives, a wonderfully titled, and the voice was just like, ooh, this is great stuff. And a mutual friend suggested that we should work together. He said that she'd be interested in doing a rock record with the right person, and he thought that I'd work well together with her. And I quite liked the idea because I wasn't really into normal sort of songs with she said she used to call the songs homicidal love songs. There's a case of not so much my baby's left me, I'm going to throw myself out the window. I always thought if my baby's left me, I'm going to throw him out the window. And so I always found her whole approach quite refreshing, and it seemed to me a really good thing to do, and we hit it off immediately. And we had respect for each other as musicians, Well, she has a serious career, which follows, and it just seemed a good thing to do at the time again.
Joined by drummer Pete Thomas of Elvis Costello 1978 fame, a 10-track album was recorded midway through 1994. I must warn you guys, if you're not into avant-garde music, you're probably gonna hate this record. The Sporting Life is not an easy album to digest, but once you see its beauty, it's a thrilling experience you can't miss. Diamanda played Hammond organ and piano on the album. If there's any doubt of what Unledded could have been with Jones, just listen to this and enjoy the wall of sound effect of his work.
She's a cutting-edge vocalist and composer, and he's one of the most influential figures in British rock music, performing Scotsimi from their new album, The Sporting Life, Diamanda Galás with John Paul Jones.
I recommend revisiting both Fate of Nations and Unledded after playing The Sporting Life. You'll be surprised and maybe disappointed. Diamanda Galás' voice really makes you forget about Robert Plant's Arabian music efforts. John Paul Jones has writing credits on 6 tracks, with Galas the sole composer for the rest except for a cover of a 1967 song. I'll do a quick summary of the record. So track 1 has an Arabic music feel in the intro, with Diamanda's vocals working out long phrases against the drone-type bass sounds of John Paul Jones. Once the drums come in, we are treated to a heavy riff in the style of Queen's Dragon Attack meets Rush's Tom Sawyer. The singing is a violent Galas trademark rant in what seems to be Spanish at times. Track 2 is another Jones co-written tune with a very catchy funky bass line that leads Galas' spoken word filled with irony and crazy yelling. I enjoyed this one very much. It was one of the singles for the album, it seems. Track 3, Dark End of the Street, is a 1967 cover I mentioned. One of the most famous versions was recorded by Aretha Franklin in 1970. Diamanda's take sounds like the blueprint for Amy Winehouse's entire career. I'm not kidding. Check it out. Track 4, You're Mine, written by Galas, is a repetitive funk run with an ostinato type of vocal that revolves around the song's title. Track 5, also by Galas, is a continuation of the 1967 cover feel with a slower tempo. Amy Winehouse had to be inspired by this great female artist. Track 6, Devil's Rodeo, was written by all 3 musicians, Galas, Jones and Thomas. It features a rockabilly riff and a 60s inspired beat. Diamanda's vocals keep the avant-garde phrasing choices walking the thin line of psychiatric ward and sanity. Track 7, The Sporting Life, was also co-written by Jones. The bass riff seems to be like a tighter version of track 1. You can tell these were recorded as funk jams, with Diamanda somewhat improvising her theatric lines on top, maybe poking fun at singers taking themselves too serious, with albums dedicated to the fate of nations. This will put a smile on your face and maybe piss off your neighbors. Track 8, Baby's Insane, is another Galas soul-inspired tune and a nice throwback to the 60s lounge singer style. Track 9, Last Man Down, starts with lap steel guitar work by Jones, next to Galas singing the avant-garde blues. Her random vocals are incredible. Closing track Hex is a drumming showcase by Pete Thomas. It's the most creative song on the album, with rapid keyboard parts and Jones's punch that builds a massive wall of sound, with Arabian music scales and a demanding mix of odd meters, frenetic beats, and rhythmically challenging vocal lines. This song should have been in Unledded with the Egyptian ensemble. Imagine John Paul Jones, Diamanda Galás, and Hossam Ramsey playing together. You really miss John Paul Jones on Page and Plant's Unledded after checking this album. His technique and groove are second to none. This album is a confirmation of what happens when you bring John Paul Jones to the table. Magic happens.
Now, at last, reunited with his old Led Zeppelin partner Robert Plant for an Unledded MTV concert special that will premiere on October 12th. Such Zepp classics as Kashmir and Galas are remade with Plant's able backing band and assorted horns, strings, and Moroccan percussionists.
October 11th, 1994, an advanced media screening of Unledded was held at the Beacon Theatre in New York, with Page and Plant in attendance. I won't say fun fact, but sad fact. The Beacon Theatre was the venue where Atlantic's Ahmet Ertegun fell down the stairs and later passed away in December 2006. Unledded was officially aired on MTV on October 12th, which happened to also be Aleister Crowley's birthday. A European pre-screening was held in Paris on October 15th, with Page and Plant in attendance. One last screening for 1,000 guests was held in Milan, Italy on October 17th.
Still to come, Jimmy Page and Robert Plant unplug Led Zeppelin, and former Monkey Davy Jones swings into the lead role of Grease. For Led Zeppelin fans, the song has always remained the same. They want to see a reunion of the influential hard rock group. It's not happening yet, but the next best thing may be a new album from Jimmy Page and Robert Plant and a concert special premiering this week on MTV called Unledded. Mark Shearer talked with Page and Plant and has this report.
We finally got a plot that made us have a present and a future tense rather than just a past tense.
It started in the studio with some tape loops of North African drumming.
And we took it on from there to working with the rhythm section that Robert had before, Charlie and Michael, and then on from there to working with augmenting with electric hurdy-gurdy and Paul Thompson, who's playing mandolin, banjo, this, that, and the other, and then on into the North African musicians, and bit by bit everything started to take shape.
The terminology has been that we've been hard rock, heavy metal, whatever it is, but we've always been stretching it, and this time we're showing you how it is in contemporary terms.
Bassist John Paul Jones was pointedly not invited to this project.
This isn't a reunion, this is us, Jimmy and Robert. You know, it's not the Blues Brothers, and it's not Spinal Tap. It nearly is, though.
Diamanda Galás and John Paul Jones took the album on the road for both a European tour and a US tour from late October to early December 1994. Because The Sporting Life was pretty much recorded live, the three-piece lineup played every song from it. Led Zeppelin's Communication Breakdown was added on the set, making great use of Diamanda Galás' punk rock attitude, Jones's huge-sounding bass attack, and Pete's aggressive drumming. I would have loved to hear Diamanda do Dazed and Confused a la 1973, you know? Imagine her avant-garde take on the call and response sections. Playing as a three-piece was demanding, but the level of musicianship was extraordinary, with a weakest link non-existent. Jones's bass tone set the controls for his future solo album ventures. His sound evoked some of the 1977 live Achilles Last Stand feel, with a modern no-end frequency that gave him a lethal punch. While most video footage contains Led Zeppelin's cover in just a couple of songs from the album, there is a great bootleg recording from their show on December 8th that shows the wide variety of sounds and motifs the band had to offer. This was an artistic statement that probably challenged any Zeppelin fans expecting Jones to play No Quarter or Kashmir. There's never huge markets for this type of niche music project, but there's always good hearts and great minds willing to enjoy them. These concerts make me have great respect for Jones not taking the easy way out, and I thank him for opening the door into the world of Diamanda Galás, a one-of-a-kind musician and legend of the avant-garde genre. Now, if you don't like avant-garde, there's always Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell. Page and Plant did a small media tour from November 1st till the 17th. From the Jules Holland show to a one-off performance of none other than Stairway to Heaven on a Japanese program in Tokyo. Both rockers were all about talking to the press and sharing their plans to conquer the world in 1995.
Welcome to Japan, Jimmy and Robert. はい、それじゃあまた改めて皆さん盛大な拍手でお迎えください。はい、let's go Robert Plant and Jimmy Page. Okay, Mr. Plant, if you could give a message to your Japanese press.
Boom. Good afternoon or good evening or good morning, whatever time of day it is. Really.
Hello, welcome. Did you go to see the film?
そろそろ質問に移りたいと思うんですけどね。まずは役得ということで、合同インタビューの前に私がちょっと
Well, actually, yes, I was here just during December last year.
Can you explain what unleaded means?
Unleaded is like gasoline, which is safe, roughly safe, and it's a kind of a cryptic invention of our management during one of their more lucid moments. Yeah, go on then. Sorry. Good. Hello, Steve. How's your vibe? How's your vibe? We're doing bar mitzvahs with the Egyptians.
Okay.
Yeah. We have an arrangement with a lot of the musicians who were in the film that we start rehearsing in the middle of February.
You can't do that. I don't understand it. Sorry,
what?
Excuse me. I don't think so. I don't know.
You do a very good reggae version.
Yeah.
Oh, it really begs a Moroccan arrangement. And we had to make decisions really quickly, because if we were going to do anything at all, we had to know it was right, it had to be exciting, and we didn't want to spend months and months. God is great, but time keeps moving. So, or even better, if we'd have used all the songs that we've written that are new, we haven't been able to record. I think it's important to know that we've got a lot of new songs which are currently being used by the Black Crows. MTV is it's a strange animal.
Well, personally speaking, I had a great time when I was here last time.
On the plane. It was Jimmy's idea, really, because he's got relatives in Japan. and Jimmy had such a good time last time he was here buying bootlegs. And
not buying them, Robert.
Oh no, getting them for nothing.
Acquiring.
Yeah. I haven't been here for years, but Jimmy keeps coming back here at the slightest excuse. No, you did the box set thing too.
Oh, I see.
And then you came over here with...
That's called Keep Coming Back, isn't it? Right.
No, and you came with that chap.
Let's kick the shit out of this place, shall we, Osaka?
To avoid these questions, John Paul Jones will be with us tomorrow. No, that's not true. No, we just wanted to be like two egomaniacs sitting down, flattering each other again. And John might tell the truth.
Quite right, you know.
I did.
Pacemaker.
The deal is, at our time in our career, that we can't hang about just living on the past alone. We've made the bridge now, as I said earlier on. We're still in part of an industry, so we've used the past. But we mustn't use every single element of it, otherwise the whole thing is so boring, you know? Smile and, you know, try not to die. I suppose. For a bit.
For a bit.
Yeah.
それでは、お二人にご退場していただきます。どうぞ。
ジミー・ペイジさんは違いますよ。今出てらっしゃる方はロバート・プラントさんです。ロバート・プラントさんです。こんばんは。 そしてカメラマンの右へミスタージミー・ペイジ。こんばんは。
And so when people get old, like these two guys.
Get old だってさ、ちょっと。
There's a lady. Oh yeah.
本当に Really? 後でゆっくり私だけのために歌った実は
どうもありがとうございました、皆様にはニュースを選ぶ電話番号もう一回チェックの上コマーシャルです。どうもありがとうございました。
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good luck.
And then we come around like that.
Rex King. He knows. Yes.
Actually, no, Jim went to the toilet for ages. Do you remember you? Yeah.
I'm surprised you noticed, Robert.
Well, I'd had 3 shaves by the time he came back. And while I was away, we started work.
Was the exclusion of John Paul Jones an obvious sort of...
Shut up.
An obvious.
Oh, it don't matter. It's just that Jonesy was busy and we're busy.
Okay, next.
When we started working, we came up with we were writing a lot of, well, right from day 1 or day 2, we had 4 things written.
You're not responsible for, you know, I mean, you don't, if you want to go and have a romance on a Friday or a Saturday, you don't have to go out with your wife or your ex-wife. You know, you don't have to be completely chained, Jonesy with the onions on his jacket and all that. Wearing the wig in Song Remains the Same. I mean, he's still got the same wife, he doesn't need us.
Next question, next.
I mean, they aren't the old songs because they're so different. When that guy hits, when Hossam Ramsey starts the rhythm percussion in Kashmir, that ain't the old song. And when the man stands up and plays for his God and his country with the violin, that's not an old song. And will the old fans like it? I doubt it. They're already ODing on Chris Rea. I'm sorry, Chris. My manager, if he was here now, would be scowling, saying, don't knock anybody. But I've had my Valium, so I'm all right. I mean, I can't stand listening to what happened. You know, I remember... No, I don't. I remember, okay, I do. When John Anderson and all that, they used to play in Yes, and they used to go back to the hotel room, rig the Revox up, get some brown rice, and sit there for another 3 hours listening to what they just played. I mean, what the fuck's the point of that? The music, this music now? No, it's fucking awful. What time did you get up?
I think Beck is good. I mean, the new one, not the Jeff one. The Jeff one is good too, but you're talking about new bands. You know, I think the material on his album is really, really imaginative.
No Quarter, Jimmy Page and Robert Plant Unledded enter the Billboard album chart at number 4 on November 26th. Historic sales show almost 1.5 million copies sold. It remains Robert Plant's 3rd best-selling album below Now and Zen and Raising Sand. It is technically Jimmy Page's best-selling album from his entire post-Led Zeppelin output. The album cover was designed by the same guy who did Fate of Nations, Martin Kelly Kalaman. The original audio release of Unledded left out the Rain song and What Is and What Should Never Be from the tracklist. The 2004 version, remixed by Kevin Shirley with a red album cover, added one more song in the ways of the Rain song. The other one was left out for some reason. The original VHS release of 1995 featured all 17 tracks from the MTV broadcast. The 2004 DVD edition had bonus features including an American Music Awards performance, a promotional video for Most High of the Walking into Clarksday album, a Moroccan montage, and a Page and Plant interview. Some unconfirmed sources state this DVD came with John Paul Jones' phone number.
So, thanks very much. That was fabulous. Thank you very much. Glad to be back.
And these people were playing and they were brilliant. And we couldn't find anybody else who'd play with us.
This is Jimmy Page immediately to your right.
He's a recovering candidate, right? Why am I doing all the talking?
I was about to say.
Because he keeps asking you the questions.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's... I'm
Okay.
terribly sorry.
Right. No.
It's a bit like your wet T-shirt competitions in the pubs around here.
No, we don't. This is the 90s now. We don't have those anymore. We've moved on. We have wet brain competitions instead.
Yeah, I can see that.
Thank you very much. It's gel, actually.
No, it's a real thing.
So you really
Sure.
don't.
Actually, I'm getting one made up with 8 necks. I'm going to get a wheelwright to make a big rim round it, and then I can do cartwheels off the stage.
Now that is rock and roll.
Yeah, I think so.
We paid tribute to this song, and in fact,
there's a lady who's sure all that glitters is gold, and she's buying a stairway to heaven. There's a lady who's sure all that glitters is gold.
Who is that lady? If you examine the text of this piece, then you find that lady is none other than Miss Shirley Bassey.
There's a lady who knows all that glitters is gold, and she's buying a stairway to heaven.
what more tribute?
So my final thoughts on Unledded. Well, I can understand the album's enormous popularity at the time among Zeppelin and classic rock fans. A closer inspection for this retrospective made me realize it has been wrongfully advertised as the Egyptian album. This is not true, as there are 4 different musical intentions here. First, you got the English folk stripped down versions of the originals. Next, there's the handbook rendition of Zeppelin rockers with no variations to the studio cuts. Next, some sort of Middle Eastern folk. And then you have just 3 Egyptian ensemble arrangements that actually showcase Hossam Ramsey and friends. I find it quite laughable people categorize Unledded as one big Egyptian album. It's like Jurassic Park 1993 saying San Jose, Costa Rica was a beach when it's actually a valley far away from it. I believe the album was sold on the false pretense The Rain Song, Kashmir, Friends and 4 Sticks. One wishes the entire record sounded like that. The 4 original cuts written for this project didn't age very well. I'll give you an example of a memorable composition making great use of world music. Robert Plant's Rainbow from his 2014 release Lullaby in the Ceaseless Roar. It's quite the full circle to what an original tune on Unledded could have been. And just for the record, I think Robert's career from 2010 on is his best in terms of sound and consistency. I may resent 1990's plan for comments, actions and songs, but the man did evolve into a singer that found peace within. So what's the best post-Led Zeppelin album from 1994? Well, The Sporting Life, of course. Go Jonesy. Unledded was a great moment for Jimmy Page with a slightly shy guitar showcase after the Coverdale Page attack was cut short. He was back to a familiar place where the business people around him were not his friends this time, a touring schedule at the mercy of the demons surrounding past glories. Jimmy Page was now on autopilot for the next 4 years with the trials and tribulations that a money-making nostalgia venture brings along. Page and Plant were ready, and Unledded. On the next episode of Post-Led Zeppelin 1990s, we head out to 1995 when Jimmy Page and Robert Plant embarked on part 1 of their massive world tours, while John Paul Jones delivered his most iconic line of the decade at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Please welcome Robert Plant and Jimmy Page.